What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point as we are slowly getting to that 100 episode mark, and we're just having a great time with it. We're hearing new stories, new music, and just talking to new artists every single day. It doesn't matter if they're from here in the US, over in Australia, Canada, the UK. You guys know we've been all over the place. But today I welcome Maggie Reese to the show. Maggie, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? How are
And
you?
not too bad, not too bad at all. I always just like to just say thank you. I appreciate you just taking time out of your day to sit here, be on the podcast, and talk about your story through music today.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so kind of really just hopping into the first question because it really just kind of sets up the whole interview, and it's always the basic of basics. People always yell at me for it just because it's so plain and so simple, but it really just sets up the whole story. And it just, where did everything come about for you, singing and playing wise? Because I know for some people it starts at such an early age. They start humming nursery rhymes the day they were born and stuff like that, but I always compare it to someone like myself who really only started the whole songwriting and producing thing and even the podcasting only 3, 4 years ago. And so it's crazy how some people start so early and then some people start late, but it's really just the journey that where it starts is super cool. So how did everything kind of come about for you?
I first started playing piano when I was really, and since I was playing piano, I started composing my own music on the piano, probably when I was about 7 or 8 or something, performing at church, starting at 8 years old. And ever since then, I've loved it. I then picked up my first guitar at the age of 12, and I self-taught myself on the guitar. And ever since then, it's just been a normal thing. Like I've always loved singing, I've always loved playing instruments and all that. So I always started at a very young age.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. Like I said, it really just gets the whole base of the story on where everything started for you. And I mean, I've always loved music since I was a kid. I mean, that 90s, early 2000s country music is what was always playing in my household. Like there, my mom, like when she was cleaning the house and stuff like that, just I mean, Travis Tritt, Garth Brooks, George Jones, Tim McGraw, just like all way back in the day. Just that's really what got instilled into me. But then, I mean, I've grown over the years and I've listened to so many artists. And I always say is one of my favorite inspirations is Chris Daughtry. He's a rock and roll artist and obviously just one of my all-time favorite artists. I love his songs. I just love his vocals and everything about him. And this is kind of leading into the next question is I could sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours and talk to you about just this question alone and make a podcast just about inspirations alone. Is who are some inspirations that you kind of really look up to and just kind of really inspire you on your journey in your music career?
Well, like you, I mean, I have a lot of people who inspired me and all that. It would definitely be some of the older country artists like Dolly Parton, George Jones, Merle Haggard, Reba McEntire, Patsy Cline, and then I also Miranda Lambert really inspires me as well. Just mainly that those old country artists that I grew up on as well. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's super cool. And honestly, I love Miranda Lambert too. Like easily one of my all-time favorite female country artists, like literally of all time. I love her so much. And it's really cool to just hear some of those artist names that you mentioned and that I mentioned because their storytelling aspect is just really, really what draws me in. And that's why I think I love country music so much and why it's my favorite genre is just the storytelling aspect. That's how I wrote my first ever song was writing about my grandfather passing away and just telling the story of the stuff that we used to do together and the memories that we used to share. And it's just at the end of the day is if I can sit there and write a good song that tells a good story and can help other people down the road, then that's what I feel like a good songwriter is and what a good artist really displays. And kind of getting into the third question, it's always one of my favorites, is talking about the creative process. I always have to quote Garrett Walker, who was on the show. He says it perfectly. The songwriting process is like a puzzle. Whether you have 100 piece puzzle, 200 piece puzzle, you kind of have it all scattered on the table, and you're like, where does everything go? How do I put this together? And slowly you start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together, and by the end, you have this full masterpiece. You have this full song and thing that you can share and cherish with everyone and be like, hey, look what I did. I created this. And obviously, as all songwriters and singers know, there is really no rhyme or reason to the whole process. But so kind of the question for you is, when it comes to writing music, what is kind of your process like when it comes to creating a song?
So, normally I'll uh it's normally late at night. I don't know why it's like 1 in the morning or something, but so normally a verse or a hook or like a couple words will just pop up in my head. So I'll get my songwriting book and I'll jot those down and then I'll pick up my guitar, start playing a melody. And then once I start playing the melody, it kind of just comes to me most of the time. It comes to me. So most of the time it just comes to me and I just can't stop writing. And so I just take that whole night, no matter if it's a school night, no matter if it's a weekend, I just keep writing.
No, exactly. And that's what you got to do, like, especially like, and it's so crazy that you said like it doesn't matter. Like sometimes it comes at like 1 a.m. and that's like when it always hits for me too, is like 1, 2 a.m. in the morning. And sometimes it's crazy when the inspiration or just when those lyrics really hit you, because it could just be sitting at home doing nothing. And like it's like I'll be like laying in bed and like I'll like wake up at like 1 a.m. and just roll over, and then all of a sudden, like bam, like something pops into my head. And then I'm like, okay, now I got to get up. And then 4 hours later, I'm going to work and no sleep. But it's always crazy how people really start, because some people always start with melodies and then work on the lyrics. Or then some people, like myself, start with the lyrics and then figure out the melody later. And it's always just really cool to kind of hear how people write songs and just how they all kind of start the creative process. Getting to the fourth question, my all-time favorite question of all time. I love this question, but artists always hate this question because it is a super difficult question to ask. And that's why I say, thank God I'm the one asking and not answering the questions. But at the end of the day, there are hundreds and thousands of artists out there trying to make a name for themselves, obviously on Instagram, TikTok, all streaming platforms and stuff like that. And you probably know it's hard to post some of your covers and originals and stuff like that. And you're competing with all these other artists out there doing the same exact thing. So you want to say, hey, like my name's Maggie Reese, like this is who I am. And kind of the question for you is what makes you you compared to all these other artists, and what can we kind of take away from your music that we're not going to find in anyone else's music?
Yeah, so I think what makes me different from a lot of artists and especially the country music industry is that I'm trying to mix the old country sound with the newer sound and try to make it my own. So I'm trying to bring back some of like the older country sound, like things like Merle Haggard, George Jones, and then also mix it with things like Miranda Lambert and Casey Musgraves and people like that. And I also write about real things that I experience in hopes of connecting with somebody else in the world.
Yeah, no, and that's what it's really all about. I had mentioned that earlier, is just being able to write a song. And yeah, it would be great to connect with thousands of people on that one song. But really, at the end of the day, is if you can connect with that one or two people that say, hey, like this song just helped me out so much. Like I love like how you wrote this, and it really helped me get through some stuff, or really just motivated me to do like to get out there and do stuff. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, is if you can do that as an artist, then that's what a successful singer and a successful songwriter, and just that's what makes a superstar artist.
Yeah, most definitely.
So kind of looking towards your future a little bit now, with the fifth and final question before we hear some live music, which is always my favorite part of the interview. But is looking towards your future, what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just kind of what else can we expect down the road from you?
So my short-term goals are definitely writing a lot more songs, getting into the studio more, and also performing a lot of places just to get my name out there to attract a fan base and all that. And then my long-term goals are to hopefully attract more people with my music and also to get more singles out there and hopefully play on some bigger stages and just overall get a bigger fan base. My first single is releasing soon, so that's really exciting. Um, but I think hitting my goal of my single releasing, I'm on the right path for my short-term goals and my long-term goals.
No, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, I had found you at an early stage in your music career. So, I mean, it's obviously that's already kickstarting everything, is having you on for
Yeah.
this interview. And you're at such an early age, too, where you still have your whole music career ahead of you. And it's just, you are super, super talented. I love what you're doing. And I can't wait for your single to come out and just to see what else is going to happen for you down the road.
Well, thank you so much.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes all the questions that I have for you. And now, kind of getting to the good part of the interview is hearing some music from you. Always my favorite part. I just love hearing songs from artists, whether it's covers or originals. So, kind of usually what I'll do is I'll put myself on mute if you want to just let us know kind of what you're singing. And other than that, the floor is yours.
All right. So this is one of my favorite songs, actually. This is Take Me Home, Country Roads, John Denver. I really relate to it because, I we all have a home, no matter if it's our house or if it's people that we have. But this is one of my favorite songs. So this is Take Me Home, Country Roads.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is older, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads. All my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue waters, dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Misty taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads. I hear her voice in the morning, now she calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. And driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, well, country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, take me home. Country roads.
I mean, that's just a classic right there. I love that song. I was sitting over here jamming out. That's why I always love putting myself on mute during those. It's just because I'm over here being able to jam out, because people know if I start singing, glass will start breaking and all that stuff. So luckily you guys didn't hear any of that. But I mean, just you are super, super talented, Maggie. And it just, you really have a knack for the country music scene. And it just, like I said, I'm super excited to hear your new single once that releases, and just what else is going to come for you down the road. And again, just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit here and do this and talk about your story through music today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really had fun with it and enjoyed it.
No, of course. It's always super cool to have new artists on here, talk about new stories, and I always just love making new milestones because I actually think that you're the youngest person I've had on the show too. So that's always super, super cool. And I've interviewed some Canadian artists who have done their first ever US interview and stuff like that. And I've done a lot of people that have done their first ever interviews with me. So it's always super cool to hit those milestones and stuff like that. So again, just thank you for being a part of that and talking about your story through music today.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
No, of course. So kind of before I do my little outro here real quick is just so people can kind of go check you out, is where can we find you on social medias?
So on Instagram and TikTok, my username is _ Maggie Reese Music. On Facebook, it is Maggie Reese Blythe. And then YouTube, it is Maggie Reese Music as well.
Perfect. So everyone, please go check Maggie Reese out. She is definitely up and coming, and she's a super, super talented artist. She has a new single, obviously, coming out soon. Like she said, hasn't given us any release dates yet, but we'll be on the lookout for those. And again, Maggie, just thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got new music, new stories, new artists. Never know who's going to be on here. And we're slowly getting to that 100 episode mark. So y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in today.